Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Pinball in the Machine, a podcast for all you awakeners, especially those of you who are sitting there right now scratching your heads and saying, what the hell is going on at the moment? So let's begin. I'm Tom, and I'm here with my dear friend Greg. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Tom.
So we'd like to continue where we left off last week, talking about our experiences in and around journeying and what it's meant for us. I genuinely hope you find something that's useful, but in no way are we saying we've got all the answers. We're just saying that we've got intent. So this week, we promised that we'd answer some of your questions, but before we do that, we've had some feedback, Greg. People want us to go a little deeper on a couple of points that we made last week. So, Greg, firstly, how the hell are you? And secondly, what on earth was this funeral of yours all about?
My funeral, yeah. Fine. Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. I'm just checking my pulse. It seems to be all right, so I'm good to go. The funeral, I'll touch on it here. We'll kind of finish it off, maybe open it up again in a later podcast. But it was basically, I went through the portal, for want of a better expression, and I hit the big one. It was like I had ceased to exist. There's a word in, I think it's Sanskrit, it's Satchitananda, which is that place they're describing, which is nothingness and everything at the same time. And everything becomes clear in an instant. So what I realized was the funeral was really about the burying of the ego. And it's not, you can't get rid of your ego. It's what makes us human. But to me, it's just a question of who's driving the bus. Me, the one who is the higher self, or the little ego. So that was the funeral. We buried that little sucker August 24th, 2020. Thank you.
Amazing. I wish I'd been there.
Yeah, it was a blast.
Okay, so we can maybe pick up on that later. The other one that there was some feedback on was someone asked if I could elaborate a little bit on what I referred to as the big download. I don't know if you recall, it was the one where you said to me afterwards, how was it? What happened? And I said, I can't describe it. And you said, I know you were there then. I really like that. And I've been thinking about it a bit more. And I think there definitely is something that I can describe. I was journeying or meditating or whatever you want to call it. And I was just hit with the most glorious kind of 5K visual. The detail, the intricacies of everything, the landscape that I could see all around me was just astonishing. Later on, I did a little bit of reading up on the science or the scientific studies of near-death experiences. And it turns out that this is a widely reported phenomenon that people who wake or survive these experiences say happen, where they see with crystal clarity something either important to them or landscapes or visuals, the kind of the likes and the detail of which they've never seen before. And some of the theory behind it is the chemicals that effectively your body is generating, or the brain is generating at that time, are creating these experiences. And I think that's the closest I can come to describing it with the language that I've got. But it's amazing. And I want to see more.
Yeah, so did I. So I want this every day,
Yeah.
But I think it's probably a rush of DMT as well in the brain, which is where we get lucid dreaming from. It's where people go, usually just before they pass, they get this lovely look of peace and tranquility on their face because the DMT is kicked in and they have the key to the door. They're going. And sometimes through meditation, it happens in the middle of the night. That's how we get lucid dreaming. The brain naturally releases DMT. And we can do that during meditation. And that gives us these wonderful feelings. But to me, what it does, it just expands our consciousness. We don't go anywhere. We call it astral travel or whatever you like. But it's just the consciousness going walkabout and saying, hey, there's a whole ton of stuff here I didn't know about.
Yeah. And it's intriguing because then you start thinking, it's almost this infinite space that's not here but not there either.
Yep.
and I just want to go there all the time right now. But I gotta stick in the real world a little bit.
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, so should we do a couple of questions that we've had from some of the listeners?
Yeah, let's do it. We can't dance.
Okay.
We might as well do some questions.
So, one from a good friend of mine, Paul, and I should give a bit of context here. Paul's listened to the first podcast and gave some good feedback, but you and I have also talked to him about this sort of stuff separately as well. So he's kind of a little bit ahead in terms of his understanding of what we're babbling on about, and he's quite thoughtful. And he used to be very sort of scientifically minded. You know, he was a physicist. He didn't believe in it, and suddenly he's kind of crashed into this other world, or these other thoughts, and it's changed his life completely. So specifically on journeying, Paul asks, what are some good indicators that you're doing it right? What do you think, Greg?
What a question. Well, we go through the door on this one. This will run for weeks. Okay, so first of all, I think nothing that I say is intended as any kind of a judgment. I'm just sort of standing in my truth, which is not necessarily anybody else's truth, and just observing whatever comes to my mind. And I guess the first thing about the question that strikes me very strongly is the word right. And to me, the word right is based on the fear of getting it wrong. And it's a typical question that we would ask. We all ask the same thing. Well, how do you do it? How's the right way? When I train in Zen leadership, it's really important to differentiate that a manager does things right, but a leader does the right things. Okay, and we're talking about, in a sense, the leadership. It's what are the right things to do? Well, the right things are whatever feels right to you in the moment, which brings us to chaos, which we'll be getting into in later podcasts. But that is the short answer. Alan Watts used to say, anyone claiming that they can lead you to spiritual enlightenment is like a pickpocket selling you your own watch. Everybody knows how to do this, but we don't know that we know. And it's really in the allowing. And hopefully that's what we'll be getting more into as we go. But what a great question, because just do it however it feels. If it feels good, carry on.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I thought about this one from more, I think maybe even more of a kind of a practical real world term. So many people out there at the moment kind of advising you on how to lead a good life or your best life or whatever it might be, and it's always the same concepts that seem to come up. You know, you should eat well, you should drink lots of water, get lots of sleep, you should exercise, but the one that always comes up as well is you know, you should meditate, or you should try to find space and time, maybe not every day, but you know, reasonably regularly, even if it's just 5 minutes, to sit on your own in the quiet, undisturbed, and maybe just close your eyes and be. So that seems to be the general consensus on that is a good thing to do, or it is healthy for you. And we know, don't we, that, you know, people have been doing this for thousands of years. It's just that certainly in the Western world, it's not something that has been talked about much for quite a while now. And I'd like to start talking about it a little bit more again.
That sounds like a plan. I think the thing we have in the West is we think we have to find it, whatever it is, you know, nirvana, whatever you like. But actually, all we have to do is just put ourselves in the way of it, and it will find us. That's the way it works. And it's so counterintuitive, because we think we have to try harder. If we're not getting the thing, we have to try harder. We don't know what the thing is. Instead of just saying, right, I'm putting myself in the way of whatever is for my highest good, bring it on, and just waiting to see what happens.
That's it. So in Paul's case, for example, if he wants to know a good indicator of if he's doing it right from a practical, real-term perspective, it's just as simple as, are you sitting there in the quiet, undisturbed, and does anything happen? It doesn't have to happen. Do you feel differently afterwards? You don't have to feel different afterwards, but keep on trying it.
Yeah. The thing is that nothing will happen because, as they say in Zen, nothing happens next. Okay, so there's nothing to happen. It just is in the moment. So as we sit quietly and nothing happens, that's a result, because it is what it is. And that's the trick to the whole thing. You let everything be what everything is here to be. And I find that impossible.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm all very virtuous. I'm thinking, oh, yes, I've got this. And then 2 seconds later, I'm having a go about something or other that I'm not wanting to be, whatever it is. So it's a real big trick. But it's so easy when we stop complicating it with the shoulds. And I have to do it like this. I do it differently every single time I do it. And that's going to bring us into the subject I love the most, which is chaos. But we're pushing for time, I think. I don't know how you...
Okay, so chaos next week?
Oh, if you must. Okay, so let's... chaos next week. Let's do it.
So I think that's us out of time on Pinball on the Machine for this week, and I do hope you enjoyed it. So just to reiterate, we do really want to hear from you in terms of any questions you have. You could send those to hello@pinballinthemachine.com, or you can find us on our Facebook page for the production group Guides Not Gurus that brings this podcast together. And yeah, your questions really will help us to explore the gaps in between the words, and I think that's where the magic happens. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, please rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts or whichever platform you're using. And please be sure to come back next week. We'll have some more questions and no doubt lots more clarification on what we've been talking about this week. But for now, it's bye from myself, Tom. And Greg.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
We'll see you all next week.